The Old Testament of the Bible refers to the land of Canaan often. On today's map, the land of Canaan includes Lebanon, Israel, and part of Syria. The book of Genesis in the Old Testament records that God guided Israel's forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to live in the land of Canaan that he promised to the Israelites around 2000 BC. Later, Jacob's son Joseph was pushed into a pit by his brothers and sold as a slave to Egypt. But God miraculously arranged for Egypt's Pharaoh to make him the governor over the land of Egypt. Soon after, the whole house of Israel, due to famine, moved from Canaan to settle in Goshen, Egypt. There, they multiplied greatly in number. Joseph died. After many generations, the new Pharaoh did not know Joseph. He oppressed and exploited the Israelites, forcing them into harsh labor, wanting them to produce a large number of mud brick for the Egyptians to build 2 new cities, Pithom and Ramses. They also had to do every kind of field labor. It is generally believed that around mid-15th century BC, God called Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt and into Canaan, the land of milk and honey that God promised. But God punished Moses and that generation of Israel, and they were not allowed to enter Canaan. These were recorded in the first 5 books of the Bible. According to the book of Deuteronomy, Moses went up to Mount Nebo, where God showed the land of Canaan to him. At the foot of the mountain, near the front, is the Dead Sea and the Jordan Valley. Across the Jordan River, on the west bank, is the plain of Jericho.
Dear friends, brothers, and sisters, Shalom. Here is the plain of Jericho on the west bank of the Jordan River. Mount Nebo is in that direction. At the time, God said to Moses on the mountain, "This is the land of which I swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, saying, I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see it with your eyes, but you shall not cross over there." According to Deuteronomy chapter 31, Moses was 120 years old at that time. He followed God's instruction and gave the heavy responsibility of leading the Israelites to Joshua, son of Nun. Then he died.
Joshua is of the tribe of Ephraim, formerly known as Hosea. Moses later renamed him Joshua, meaning Jehovah the Savior. In the Greek version of the Bible, the name Joshua in the book of Joshua is the same name as Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew of the New Testament. Matthew chapter 1, verse 21 says the angel told Joseph that he may give the name Jesus to the son of Mary, for he will save his people from their sins. It was not by chance that Joshua was chosen by God, for Numbers chapter 27, verse 18 says that he was a man in whom is the Spirit. God arranged for him to spend his childhood and youth in Egypt. He experienced living in slavery, but also witnessed the miracles of God in order to save the people of Israel. During the 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, Joshua was the capable assistant to Moses. Moses raised his staff while Joshua led the Israeli troops that lacked of battle experiences to defeat the powerful Amalekites. He was the only one who accompanied Moses to Mount Sinai. Later, Moses entered God's cloud alone and received the stone tablets engraved with the 10 Commandments. After setting up the tent of meeting in the wilderness, Joshua was the only person appointed to guard it. Moses sent 12 spies to spy out the land of Canaan. Joshua was one of them. The spies brought back from the land of Canaan some pomegranates and figs. They also cut down a branch with a cluster of grapes in Wadi Eshkol and carried it back on their shoulders to prove that Canaan was indeed a land of milk and honey. However, only Joshua and Caleb firmly believed in God's promises and were not afraid of the Canaanites. They advocated the attack of the land. In the book of Joshua, there is no mention of the author's name. Some Bible scholars view that this book was mainly written by Joshua because certain detailed descriptions can only be first-hand experience of Joshua himself. For example, he alone met the commander of the army of the Lord in the plain of Jericho. Yet Joshua's death and what happened afterwards was impossible written by Joshua. This part of the content was probably supplemented and completed by Aaron's son, the high priest, Eleazar, and Eleazar's son, Phinehas.
Joshua is the sixth book of the Old Testament, belongs to the historical books. It records the history of Joshua leading Israel in the conquest of Canaan. In the Hebrew Bible, Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings are the books of the former prophets. The editors of the Hebrew Bible believe that in addition to record the history, the book of Joshua also is God's revelation of faith living through prophets to the Israelites.
Joshua has a total of 24 chapters and can be divided into 4 parts. Part 1, chapters 1 to 5, entering the Promised Land. Part 2, chapters 6 to 12, conquering the Promised Land. Part 3, chapters 13 to 22, allotting the Promised Land. And Part 4, chapters 23 and 24, renewing the covenant with the one true God.
At Spring of Water International Ministries, we invite you to journey with us, giving seed to the sower and bread to the eater. Isaiah 55:10. To find out more, follow Spring of Water International Ministries.